Hi everybody, welcome to Ask Jenny K. The subject for this video is making panels work for you. So we're going to talk about a variety of panels, how panels usually show up, what you can do with them, what to do if they're too big, what to do if they're too small. We'll talk about those things, and what to do if you washed it and it shrunk down. So we're going to talk about those things. And please pipe in with any questions that you have. I'd love to hear from you and answer your questions specifically. But first I'm going to do a little bit of show and tell. I am back from vacation. Do you know 1,800 people tuned in to watch the last video where I was writing backwards because I did something goofy with the thing. And I don't know what it is. I bet I did, but yeah, I did it. So I hope you enjoyed watching that. Apparently it's my destiny to be a goofball in the quilting world. I accept. Okay, so let me just talk about a few things. I had a great vacation. I was up in Wyoming. I got to visit a couple wonderful shops, and I posted a few pictures of a museum that I toured, and so those are on Facebook and Instagram. They've been up for the last couple days, but I'll have more, and I'm going to have a blog post to follow that'll tell you some things about that. Don't forget, I have this beautiful quilt up here, and that pattern is yours for free when you sign up for my email newsletter. So go ahead, sign up. It's a lovely pattern. It's called How Many Circles, one of my very first, and it's yours for free. Okay, now I'm going to do just a tiny bit of a trunk show here. Let me move this stuff over. This quilt, spread it out here a little bit. This quilt was published in a special edition of Quilter's Newsletter last year, and I'm going to have a panel. It's called Just a Taste, and I'm going to have a pattern for it coming out soon. And then here's another one. Oops, it just fell down, didn't it? That's all right. Show must go on. Here's another one that I made. And this is also on my Facebook page. It's the main picture there. It's called Flowers in the Window, and I'm going to have a pattern of that coming up soon. And if you've been watching a few of these, you might notice a theme that a lot of patterns coming up soon. There's a secret there. Okay, so before we get too much farther into that, I'll show you this one. I think I showed you this one a little while ago, but I don't remember. It is called, there we go. It's called Flowers in the Window, and it was published in American Quilters Society magazine earlier this year. Now I want to talk about it specifically because in the center is a panel. All right, so typically panels are 2/3 of a yard. They cover about 2/3 of yards, and it will usually be half of the width. So you've got 45 inches, right, or 40 inches of usable fabric, I like to say. You have 40 inches there, and you'll divide it in the middle. You usually have two patterns, typically, but not always. We'll talk about little variances there. This one here, and they're typically 2/3 of a yard in this direction, but it just entirely depends on what you get and what the manufacturer has decided. But that's the typical thing. So what I did to cut this out, and boy, let me tell you, if you think cutting out something for a gift makes you nervous, wait till you cut it out and you know it's going to be in a magazine. And everybody's going to be looking at it, and they're going to be all like, oh, look at that shit. You know, that's worrisome. So let me tell you just a little bit about what things I did to cut that out. What I did, I went to my quilt, right? And I had on my pattern, I'd already measured out what the distance needed to be. I used my ruler, right, my trusty ruler, and I measured out, okay, it needs to be, I think I figured this one was 16 inches wide. I think that's the width right here, but don't quote me exactly because it pulls in from the quilting and whatnot. About 16 inches wide, and so then I measured it, and I planned to cut it. Now, oh, no, it wasn't 16 inches wide. It was wider than that. I want you to notice here, this little strip here, that is one of my secrets. It's called a coping strip. And I'll show you more about that here in just a minute. It's called a coping strip, and because I always recommend, number one recommendation with panels is to pre-wash them. Because if they're going to shrink or if their sizes are going to change at all, you want to know that before you put it into the quilt, before it can cause any problems, if you anticipate washing the quilt. If it's just going to be an art quilt or something like that, it's just going to hang up there. It really doesn't matter if you pre-wash it. If you're never going to wash the end product, you don't need to worry about washing the fabric beforehand. But I prefer to always pre-wash my panels because then you know what size, what constraints, what you're wiggling with. All right, so I pre-washed this, and it was too small because the distance it's supposed to cover is from here to here and 1/4 of an inch on each side, and it didn't. It was short there, so I made coping strips for that, and I'll talk about those here in just a minute. So actually, that's pretty straightforward because you have the boundaries. You have a good outline of, usually the manufacturer will provide a good outline that you can see to help you figure that out. You know, it'll be like nice, white, clean borders on there. But again, it's important to pre-measure it and to make those adjustments as you go. What if you encounter something that's not a panel, but clearly is intended to be used as a panel? Like this. Oops, I pulled up too much. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, I love it. I love it. If it had purple, it'd be my color trifecta. Right now, it just has a 2-3 colors. Oh, speaking of color trifecta, I almost forgot. Okay, check this out. I had a gal, Barbara. She made my logo. And I can put a little popsicle stick there, so I can stick it in planters, and I can use it in little decorative places. This is my color trifecta. This is a perfect shot for me. Almost everything I've made has had one of these colors in it. I know, crazy. And you can see that with this one here. Anyways, I will post her link. She does some amazing stuff. I'll post her email so you can contact her. Little tiny things that she made. I don't know how she does it, but it is awesome. So I'll shout out to Barbara. I'll put her information. I'll post it underneath this. Okay, so here we are. We have our piece right here, right? And we want just that center bird there. Well, how much space do we have to work with? We want that center peacock. So what you would do is you take one ruler. You're going to need 2 big rulers for this. You take one ruler, and you kind of lay it down. Oh, let's see, we'll figure out how wide. So for sake of argument, since the ruler is 24 inches, we're going to say we need 24 inches wide. And we're going to put it on there, and we'll center it so it's in the middle of our bird, the middle of the 24 inches, right there centered. So that's a 12-inch mark. So I'd figure out where I want that to be. Okay, so I know how far that is. Now I need to know how far to go down this way. So I take my other ruler. Oops, that's a little noisy. I'll take my other ruler, which is 24.5 inches. That's convenient. I take my other ruler, and I would measure that then, the distance of how long it has to be this way, or however long it has to be, right? So if this panel is 24 inches wide, let's say it's 18 inches long. That's a good balance. So I'd measure it. Switch that around here. I've measured 18 inches down. And obviously I don't have this centered, but I'm trying to give you an idea of how it would work when you're putting yours together. So I would measure that, right, and say I have it lined up just where I want it, and I take some chalk, and this is General's pastel chalk. I just bought a box of them in Hobby Lobby, you know, with the coupon or whatever. These work great for marking stuff like this, especially here on this dark fabric. So say I have my lines that I want to cut out on. I'm going to make a line there, a line there. I can see, and then I can cut along the line, and I would recommend cutting with scissors when you're working with panels because you just need to be careful. You need to be very careful where they are. I don't recommend folding panels in half and cutting. I recommend drawing lines like this or you know, very carefully doing each side because you can really muck up a panel. Another thing you can do too, if you say, oh, I know that this is a 12-inch squares. These are all going to be 12-inch squares. Well, then you take a ruler, nice square ruler that's about 12 inches, and you would line it up there where you want it to go. Get it in that center, and then you could draw the lines around the outside to take care of that panel. Okay, now, so that's just some ideas. Also, if you don't have a ruler large enough, you can also buy template plastic, pretty inexpensive, and you can use it for other stuff, and just cut it to the right dimensions, and then lay it out on there and kind of wiggle it around. Essentially, it's like fussy cutting, but it's on a much larger scale than we usually talk about fussy cutting. All right, so I've got the ones that I showed in the picture here. Isn't this fabric glorious? I love it. I don't know what I'm going to make with it, but it's going to be awesome. Just like the peacock one. I don't know what I'm going to make with it, but it's going to be awesome. So I'm going to pretend like that this is a full panel. You see, these are smaller pictures. Now, if you saw my stuff on cutting, you know that I recommend cutting along the grain line because I think you get better results and better control. But we can't always do that with this. So I say then you line up your ruler where it needs to be, and I'm 1/4 of an inch from the end of that border, but sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you need wiggle room, and sometimes you need coping strips. So if things aren't the same size, you make coping strips. What you need to do, it's going to require some math, but it's okay. I'll be with you through the whole thing, all right? What you need to do, you need to measure across and measure there to get it the right size and figure out what are the dimensions. So let's say, again, let's say it's 20 by 10, okay? So if it needs to be 20 by 10, I'd measure that and see however much short it is, and then add that amount on plus 1/4 of an inch. And so we'll say that this is we'll say that this is 8 by 18. So I need to add an inch on each side, and to each of those strips that I'm going to add, I need to make that a 1/2 inch larger to account for the 1/4 inch seam allowances. So that's what I'll do. I will cut strips that are the right width. And look at that. So I could put it on there, right? And I can measure that and add to it. And these are coping strips. If anybody's ever participated like in a block challenge or something where you say, okay, everybody, we're going to make blocks that are 12.5 inches wide. Go ahead and make them and send them to me. We're going to put them all together and give them to so-and-so. And then you get them and you're like, it's 11.5. Why did they make it 11.5? This person made it 10. I don't understand. Well, you can also use the coping strips for that. And you make a little border around the ones that are the wrong size. You don't have to redo it all, and you can still include their stuff, but so you can cope with the issues and the mistakes, right? Coping strips. Doesn't that sound nice? It sounds like you just want to hold them in your hand till you feel better. All right, so that's what you can do. If your panels are the wrong size, you can use coping strips and add them on there. That is exactly what I did with this quilt. I made coping strips to go around the side of some of the collection fabric. And you can do that. You can make it an accent. You could do it so it blends in and nobody knows. Whatever you want, it's up to you. All right, so I hope I have answered your questions about working with panels and some way to work with panels. If you have other questions, post them. I will get back to you, and I love to take care of you. Please go to my website, JennyKQuilts.com. You can see more of my videos right now on my Facebook page, Jenny K Quilts, and I'll also be moving them over there to my website. So again, I hope I've answered your questions, and I'll see. Oh wait, no, preview for next time. Next time you're going to meet one of my friends. Her name is Penelope Pins a Lot. And we're going to talk about pins and the way, all different kinds of pins to use and the different purposes that pins might serve. So I will see you next time when we meet Penelope Pins a Lot. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.